An hour before the close of work, Lucy raised her head from the laptop in front of her when her phone rang out. She picked it up and her lips curved in a smile when she saw the call was from Sonia. She had been holding back from calling Sonia since she felt she was disturbing her a lot lately, especially as she knew Sonia was busy writing a new story and didn't need to be distracted, even though Sonia would never complain. "Hey," Lucy greeted fondly as she stretched her legs under the desk. "Guess what?" Sonia asked excitedly, making Lucy sit up immediately. You're on your way to visit me?" Lucy asked hopefully. "Well, at least you're right about one thing. I'm on my way to the airport right now, but not to see you. I'm going to pay Brian a surprise visit," Sonia screeched excitedly and comported herself when she met the cab driver's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Brian? As in Brian the actor? Your supposed fake fiancé?" Lucy asked, and Sonia rolled her eyes. "Is there any other Brian you know?" Sonia asked dryly. "He invited you over?" Sonia sighed. What part of the surprise in the surprise visit did you miss? "Why? I mean, why are you going to see him if he didn't invite you over? Your relationship is fake after all." "I don't think he is going to like that," Lucy said with furrowed brows. "Don't worry about me, I got it all perfectly figured out. By the way, how is it going with your CEO? You resumed at his office today, right?" Sonia asked, swiftly changing the subject. "I'm worried about you. You're too impulsive and I fear you might get yourself in trouble one of these days," Lucy said with a sigh. Sonia had been her best friend for since forever, and since Sonia's parents died in a car crash 3 years ago, she was like the only family Sonia had left. Somewhere deep down she had wished something would happen between Sonia and her twin brother, but neither of them was interested in the other, and Lucas was very much in love with his high school sweetheart who he had engaged some weeks ago. So there was no hope of her best friend getting together with her twin brother. "Believe me, you have nothing to worry about. I'm okay, and I'm handling myself properly. Now answer my question, have you met your boss yet? What is he like? How handsome is he?" Sonia asked again. N0V3LTR0VE served as the original host for this chapter's release on N0V3LB1N. "I haven't met him, and I highly doubt he is handsome." Lucy lowered her voice in case anyone was eavesdropping on her conversation. "As a matter of fact, I suspect B must be very hideous." "Hideous? Why would you think that?" Sonia asked curiously. "I was instructed not to look at him, or speak directly to him since he prefers exchanging messages via texts and emails." "Who does that? Anyway, thinking about it now I realize it's not very strange since most people don't even know what he looks like," Lucy concluded. "Well, that is your theory. I have a better one. I think he must be so handsome that he is hiding his face from the world because he doesn't want ladies to drop dead at the sight of him," Sonia said with a wide smile, and Lucy rolled her eyes. "Time will tell. Anyway, guess what I found out?" Sonia asked excitedly once again. "You found out that you are in love with Brian?" Lucy asked dryly, making Sonia giggle. "No. I'm not in love with him yet, but I certainly want to know him and fall in love with him." "Is that what you found out?" Lucy asked with a yawn. "No. Your boss happens to be Brian's older brother," Sonia said excitedly. Lucy's eyes widened in surprise as she sat up on her seat. "What?" She hadn't been expecting that. "You're surprised, right?" "I was too. So you see? There is absolutely no way your boss can look hideous," Sonia said confidently. "What if he was involved in an accident and got disfigured? Or perhaps he was born with some sort of disability which he is hiding from the world?" Lucy asked, not wanting to change her theory about him being ugly. "You've been reading too many novels. I don't think that is the case. But imagine us being sister-in-laws if we get married to both brothers. That would make a good story, right?" Sonia asked with a bright smile. It isn't realistic. Stuff like that only happens in movies and novels, not in reality. Besides, I have no interest whatsoever in my weird boss, and I'm sure he isn't interested in me either, Lucy said confidently. Don't be so sure. I wonder what he might think when he finds out his assistant is the best friend of his future sister-in-law, Sonia thought out loud. I'd rather he doesn't know anything personal about me, so please keep your mouth shut. Don't go telling your fake fiancé anything either, Lucy warned. Whatever, I need to go now. I will let you know once I safely arrive at my fiancé's home. That Sonia hung up. She returned her phone into her handbag and looked outside through the cab window. She was grateful for the sunglasses she was wearing, which shielded her eyes from the sharp glare of the late afternoon sunlight. Although she was looking outside, she wasn't seeing anything as her mind was very far away. She tried to imagine all that could happen between her and Brian during this visit. Was she doing the right thing? All she knew at the moment was that she liked Brian, she wanted fun and also wanted inspiration for her story. Though getting married and having kids with him were all secondary goals, but they were part of her plan. She wanted to start a family, and she wanted it to be with him. Soon the cab came to a stop in front of the airport and she alighted after paying the cab driver. Her lips twitched with satisfaction when she noticed the attention she was receiving from men and women alike. With her long curly blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, she was dressed in a sexy yellow, mini, bodycon sequin dress, which was long-sleeved and had a v-neckline. Her beige-colored high-heeled sandals made clinking sounds as she moved. Carrying her handbag in one hand and holding the handle of her medium-sized bus, on the other hand, she slowly made her way inside the airport while enjoying the attention she was receiving. Being the fiancé of a celebrity like Brian, she knew she needed to dress appropriately in an eye-catching manner. She was a vision to behold. She stopped midway and took out her phone from her handbag when she remembered she was yet to take pictures. She snapped several beautiful and cute selfies before asking a male passerby to take pictures of her, making sure her engagement ring was visible in all the photos. After that, she logged on to her Instagram and Twitter page and uploaded some of the photos, and tagged Brian to them with the caption, "Finally going to spend some time off work with the love of my life." She knew he had been unable to trace her via social media because she wasn't using her real name on social media. Once she was done, she dropped the phone inside her bag and continued to the point where she was to check in for her flight. She had a grin on her face as she imagined how shocked he would be when he sees her post. She would have preferred to show up at his house unannounced, but she wanted a lot of publicity. That would keep him on his toes and as such make him more accommodating. Lucy shut down her laptop when she finished working few minutes to closing hour and picked up the documents she needed to return to her secretary. She knew she could easily call her secretary over to pick them up, but she needed to be sure the staff in her unit were all doing their job and not slacking off simply because she was not around to monitor them. She stopped outside the office door when she heard the conversations going on inside. "Do you think perhaps the boss likes her? I mean, she just got here and is already working at the CEO's office. Isn't that a bit strange?" A feminine voice asked. "Or perhaps she is being punished for something? Who knows?" Another asked. The origin of this chapter's debut can be traced to /n/o/vel/b/in. Whatever it is, I really hope she is okay. The CEO is such a weirdo and I can't even imagine what he looks like to be hiding his identity this way. I've been here for 3 years, and never once have I spied him coming in or leaving, she heard her secretary say. "You never can tell, maybe he is very handsome," another excited female voice guessed. 3 years? I've been here for 5 years. I heard he has his own private elevator in his office. Only the board of directors and some of their secretaries have seen him. I heard he isn't bad looking, the First Lady said. Do you know if Miss Perry has seen him yet? Someone asked her secretary. I suppose so? I don't know. You know I can't ask her that. We are not that close yet, her secretary said. Lucy decided she had heard enough, and pushed open the office door, startling every one of them who had gathered around her secretary's desk. They all looked startled to see her, and then each of them scurried off to their desks, leaving only her secretary, who was wondering whether or not she had heard their conversation, to face her. "Here," Lucy said, and dropped the documents on her desk before turning to look at the others who were now pretending to be focused on their work. They all knew she was a workaholic, and they guessed she probably expected the same zeal from them. "I haven't seen him yet. But I'd rather you all spend the work hours doing the job you're being paid to do rather than engaging in such idle gossips," Lucy said calmly before walking away. They all heaved a sigh of relief once the door closed behind them, and they remained quiet for some time until they were sure she was out of earshot. "Was that really Miss Perry?" one of the guys asked in disbelief. "She looks like a completely different person," another guy commented. "I would look different too if I was to work as the CEO's personal assistant," one of the ladies said with a naughty smile. "I know, right?" another said with a knowing smile. "This new look suits her more. She looks more beautiful and less rigid," one of the guys said, and the other guy nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, outside the office, Tom had an impressed smile on his face when he saw Lucy approaching the car. He liked that she had come out earlier than the others. "It's not closing hour yet," Tom reminded her once she got into the car. She gave him a nod. "Yeah. Mr. Harry said I should leave once I was done with my assignments for the day. The CEO apparently doesn't love people hanging around the office doing nothing," Lucy said dryly as she buckled her seatbelt before turning to Tom. "Not bad. Do you have something to eat at home, or should I order something for us?" Tom asked as he turned on the car's ignition and drove out of the parking lot. Lucy paused for a moment. Dinner with him? They were going to hang out in either of their apartments seeing a movie anyway, so there was no reason not to have dinner while at it, she reasoned. "Let's order pizza." "That's what I'm craving right now," Lucy said, and then remembered the medical test. "You're certain I don't need to get that test?" "There is still time for me to get it done." "You don't need it," Tom said without sparing her a glance. Although she was still curious to know why he said she didn't need the test, she was just going to wait and ask him later. For now, she allowed herself to relax since she was relieved by Tom's assurance. "So, how was work today?" Tom asked, wanting to keep their conversations light and easy. "Not bad. Thanks for lunch, by the way. Thanks to you I don't skip meals much anymore. My parents are going to love to know I have a neighbor like you," Lucy said with a small smile. "Really? I suppose they worry about your eating habits too?" Tom asked, curious to know more about her parents. "Yeah. Especially after I was hospitalized due to severe ulcer pains," Lucy said with a sad smile, not wanting to think about that time. "The ulcer is that serious? Yet you don't eat?" "Why?" "I don't know. Maybe I just love to keep my mind busy at every point in time, so other important things seem to escape my mind. I only remember I haven't eaten when I start feeling the pangs of hunger," she said with a dismissive shrug. Tom narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. Keeping her mind busy all the time had to mean she was trying not to think about something. What could that be? What was troubling her so much? He wondered. "I guess I have to make sure I remind you to eat all the time. I don't want to have to rush you to the hospital," Tom said, and she smiled. "So what about you? Did you see your lady crush today?" Lucy asked curiously. "Sure. During lunchtime," Tom said with a crooked smile. "Really? Did you approach her? Did she notice you?" Lucy asked, and he could hear the excitement in her voice. "I didn't approach her, and I'm not sure she noticed me yet." "What do you think I should do to make her notice me? Should I just approach her directly?" Tom asked, turning to spare her a glance. Lucy pursed her lips with a thoughtful expression on her face as she considered his question. "Maybe you should start by just saying hello to her when you see her. You could do that for, say, 2 or 3 days, and then on the 4th day don't do anything. Allow her to approach you and say hello to you. That works, Lucy said with a nod. You mean I should ignore her? Tom asked thoughtfully. You don't have to ignore her. Just allow her to initiate the greeting and conversation, Lucy explained. Tom scratched the back of his head. What if she doesn't bother to say hi, and just walks past me? She wouldn't. Initiating the hellos for those first 3 days is you trying to get her to be familiar with you. When she sees you on the 4th day, she would naturally want to say hello whether consciously or unconsciously, Lucy explained. And when she says hello, what do I do? Tom asked with a slightly raised brow. You could ignore her and pretend like you didn't see her unless she walks up to you. And it would be best if you are around another lady at that time, so you could just be casual with your greeting. I'm sure you won't have any problem being with another lady, Lucy added dryly. Thanks. I think this tip might just be very helpful, Tom said with a smirk as he thought of ways he could use the tip against her. After eating, Brian returned to bed and dozed off while waiting for Sonia's editor to contact him. He slept soundly for some hours until the insistent sound of his ringing phone roused him from his midday slumber. He placed his pillow over his head to block off the sound, but each time the call ended, the phone started ringing again, until he had no other choice but to reach for it to see the identity of the person who was bent on disturbing his sleep. Are you calling to tell me you have found her? Brian asked sleepily, hoping she had disturbed his sleep for something important. As that was the only thing that was important to him at the moment. No. But. Without saying another word, Brian hung up and placed his phone on airplane mode before returning to sleep. He didn't want to think or talk about anything else until he was clear-headed. Mia hissed when she realized he had hung up on her, and she tried calling him again. After dialing his line a few more times without success, Mia hissed angrily as she glared at the phone in her hand as though she was looking at Brian's face. What was wrong with him? How could he be so rude? How could he hang up and switch off his phone without even finding out what she wanted to say? What was she going to do now? Brian's manager had called her to let her know he had been trying to reach Brian, all to no avail, and he had asked her to try and get across to him, and to inform him that he had to go to the airport to pick Sonia up. Most of his fans had reacted to Sonia's tweet and Instagram post, and they were all expecting him to be at the airport to welcome his fiancée. They knew without a doubt that a swarm of paparazzi would likely be gathered there to get pictures of the newly engaged couple as the news was still making the front pages of gossip columns. They all knew that if he didn't show up at the airport when everyone knew he wasn't busy with work, it would pass the wrong message to the public, and then people would start making assumptions and jumping to conclusions. Mia glanced at her phone to check the time, and she knew she had no choice but to go over to his house to inform him of what was going on, since she doubted he was aware that social media was abuzz with news of his fiancé's visit. She was just going to drive down there and take him to the airport herself. Without wasting another moment, Mia picked up her white blazer and wore it over the pink camisole she was wearing before putting on black sneakers which matched her black trousers. After that, she picked up her purse and house key from the table before hurrying out of her house. A few minutes later she arrived at Brian's house and hurried inside. She looked around the living room, and when she didn't find him, she made her way to his bedroom, hoping he didn't have any female company with him as he usually did. Brian? Mia called out as she approached his room so that he would dress up if he was naked or ask her to stop if he was with someone. Brian didn't like being referred to as Mr. Hank, hence everyone that worked with him simply called him Brian. Brian? She called again when she didn't hear anything and slowly pushed the bedroom door before stepping inside. She scowled when she saw him sleeping comfortably on the bed with his legs sprawled on both sides like he had no care in the world. Brian. She yelled angrily this time, to get his attention. Brian almost jumped out of his skin, and he sat bolt upright on his bed the moment he heard his name being yelled. He looked around the room in confusion before his eyes finally rested on Mia. Are you the one that yelled my name? He asked with a frown. As you can see, I'm the only one here. Mia hissed irritably. At this point, she was ready to lose her job. She wasn't going to hesitate to give him a piece of her mind if he so much as disrespected her or annoyed her more than he had done already. She was fed up with him and his attitude. The initial instance of this chapter being available happened at N0V3L.bin. Why are you here? Didn't we just talk over the phone a minute ago? He asked, wondering if that had been a dream. Seeing the confusion on his face, Mia sighed. You have to dress up and go to the airport right now, Mia said impatiently as she approached his closet to pick out something appropriate for him. She made sure to pick a yellow t-shirt so it would look like he and Sonia deliberately chosen to wear matching colors. What? Why? Is there a job I need to do? Brian asked in confusion as he stood up from the bed with a lost look in his eyes. Maybe if you hadn't hung up while I was trying to talk to you, you would have known that your fiancée is on her way here to visit you, Mia said, expressing her disapproval in her tone. Fiancée? Sonia? Brian asked, shaking his head which was still foggy with sleep. Was this a dream? You proposed to someone else while we weren't looking? She asked sarcastically as she threw the yellow t-shirt and ripped jean trousers on the bed. You should get dressed. She will probably be arriving any moment from now, and we have to be at the airport in time. We can't keep her waiting, Mia said as she headed for the door. Although Brian still did not understand what was going on, he could tell by the annoyance and urgency in Mia's tone that Sonia was truly on her way to see him, so he quickly dressed up and joined Mia, who was already outside the door holding his car key. How did you find out she is on her way here? Did she call? Brian asked as he got into the back seat of the car, while Mia took the driver's seat. She tagged you to a post on Twitter and Instagram. I suppose she is tired of playing hide and seek, Mia said with a shrug as she turned on the car's ignition and drove off. Brian unlocked his phone and noticed he had several missed calls from his manager and Mia, but ignored those as he opened his Instagram app and went to his page to check out his tags. He saw the pictures Sonia had tagged him to and then groaned when he realized why Mia had picked out a yellow t-shirt. He was trying to end things with Sonia not wear matching outfits. Why was Sonia coming to see him all of a sudden after staying under the radar for some days? What was she trying to do? Was this some sort of fun game for her? Brian wondered as he looked at her picture. He wished he knew what she was thinking in that head of hers, but unfortunately, he had no idea, so now he had to settle for whatever she was doing and play the game with her. He was just going to give Matt a call after this, and have him step in to take Sonia off his hands. Brian glanced at Mia when he noticed she had been unusually quiet for some time, and then remembered she had sounded annoyed back in his bedroom. Are you still mad? Good of you to notice, Mia thought in her head before taking in a deep breath. She was a very hot-tempered person, but thus far she had tried her best to be calm while working for Brian, but he seemed to be pushing her to her limit these days. It doesn't matter, she said tight-lipped. I didn't ruin another date, did I? Brian asked in a concerned tone, hoping that wasn't the case. You didn't. Brian let out a sigh of relief. I'm glad. I'm sorry I hung up and had to make you come all this way. I was very bored last night and ended up binge reading all night, so I was really exhausted and needed to sleep, Brian said, and Mia spared him a glance before giving him a curt nod. She hadn't been expecting an apology from him after all, but then again, his manager had said Brian seemed to like her more than he had liked his past assistants. She had a feeling he liked her because she was not like his past assistants who were always willing to please him and take his crap. She never failed to express her disapproval or annoyance, even though she did so mostly indirectly. What do you think about her? Sonia, I mean, Brian asked, and Mia could guess from his tone that he was feeling kind of nervous. Mia was actually more than impressed by what Sonia was doing. Especially because since the engagement news got out, Brian hadn't been with any girl, at least none that she knew about, and this was a very good thing. I think she is really cool. I like her, Mia said with a small smile, surprising Brian. You do? Why? Brian asked with a puzzled frown. Why could anyone who knew the true situation of things, and how Sonia was trying to frustrate him, like her? Mia nodded, I used to love reading her novels until I started work and couldn't find time to read anymore. I like to see that she is as bold and daring as the female leads in her stories, Mia said, with a small smile. She was going to give Sonia as much support as she could, as long as it would help them keep Brian in check and out of scandals for some time. Oh. I see. Somehow Brian agreed with Mia. Sonia was unquestionably a talented writer, and maybe if he hadn't met her under such weird circumstances, he would have been a real fan too. Perhaps he would have also appreciated her bold and daring attributes if only it wasn't being used against him. You don't like her? Mia asked after a brief hesitation. I don't. Why? Mia asked curiously. Sonia was a very beautiful and intelligent lady, a combination she was aware that Brian liked in his women. So what was different about Sonia? She is not my type. She looks and smells like trouble. I just want to wrap up this whole nightmare and return to my exciting life, Brian muttered. There it was. He didn't like the fact that the title of his relationship with Sonia was stopping him from mingling with other women. He obviously did not want to be in a committed relationship, hence he didn't like Sonia. Too bad for him that she was going to be giving Sonia her complete support. It was high time someone tamed this bad boy, Mia mused as she kept driving. Some minutes later the car rolled to a stop in front of the airport, and before Brian could alight from the car he sighted the swarm of paparazzi gathered around someone with their cameras in hand like they were taking pictures. I guess my darling fiancé has arrived, Brian muttered dryly as he observed what was going on. You should join her, Mia suggested, trying to hide her excitement. This was like watching a movie, and she wanted to see just what Sonia had up her sleeves for this bad boy. As long as she wanted to play a game, he was going to play the doting fiancé, that way it will be easier to act as the broken-hearted fiancé who had been betrayed by the lady he loved. He was an actor after all, and a very good romance actor for that matter. Without saying another word, he got out of the car and dipped his right hand in his pocket as he made his way towards the small crowd. Once Brian got close to them, his lips curved in a smile as he yelled, "Baby." Once Sonia heard his voice, her face lit up with a smile that started from her eyes, and her lips curved upwards, revealing her perfect set of white teeth. She could tell that Brian was into his acting mode. May the best actor win, she thought in her head as she quickly let go of her handbag and luggage box, letting them fall to the ground as dramatically as possible. She rushed through the crowd of journalists and flung herself into Brian's ready arms. Their lips locked in a passionate kiss, which of course was for the benefit of the curious eyes observing them, and also for the cameras which were now flashing in their direction. Lucy was still contemplating on whether to go over to Tom's apartment or wait for him to come over to hers when he knocked on her door. She looked down at the oversized black t-shirt she was wearing over her leggings and decided she looked decent enough before opening the door. Tom took in her appearance in one glance, and his lips twitched in amusement when he noticed she had tied her hair on a ponytail once again and was back to wearing her glasses. "I hope I can get used to both versions of you someday," he said as he walked in carrying a box of pizza on one hand and a bottle of wine on the other hand. "I'm sure you will," Lucy said with a small smile as she shut the door behind him and walked straight to her kitchen. She returned with 2 wine glasses and 2 china plates, which she set on the center table before sitting on the couch, which was adjacent to the one on which Tom was seated. Tom opened the pizza box and placed a slice of pizza on each plate before handing one of the plates to her. "So what movie are we going to see?" Tom asked as he took a bite from the piece of pizza on his plate. "I'm not sure I have any movie that would be of interest to you. So maybe we should leave the movie thing up to you," Lucy suggested. Maybe she was odd, but she preferred reading books to seeing movies. She never could stay awake until the end of any movie, and she always wondered why people had to pay to watch movies in a cinema. "Why? What sort of movies do you have?" Tom asked curiously, wanting to learn something new about her. "I'm not sure I have. But I prefer science fiction, thrillers, and superhero movies," Lucy said, and Tom raised a brow. L1 T Lagoon witnessed the first publication of this chapter on N0 VLB1N. I see you're not much into the romance genre? I don't fancy movies that have happily ever afters. It's not realistic. Life doesn't work that way, Lucy said with a shrug, and then she remembered there was something more important to be discussed, so she dropped her plate and pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose before looking at Tom. You said you were going to tell me why I don't need to get a medical test done, Lucy reminded him with a serious facial expression. Tom, who had been about to take another bite from his pizza, paused midway and returned the pizza to his plate as he met her gaze. He held her gaze for a while, and just when she was about to repeat her question he said, I didn't have sex with you. Lucy's first instinct was to laugh at his joke. It had to be a joke. If he was trying to reassure her that she was safe, by lying that he hadn't had sex with her, then he must think very low of her. Tom didn't laugh or smile as he watched her. He could tell that she didn't believe him. He had thought long and hard about it, whether or not he should tell her the truth, and had come to the conclusion that there was no need to lie about something as simple as that, else it would further complicate things. He had imagined a case scenario between them whereby he would be about to make love to her and she would find out she was still a virgin and he had been lying to her about that. That could be disastrous and raise a lot of trust issues, and he didn't want to add that to the many lies he had told her already. You're not joking, are you? Lucy asked doubtfully when he remained quiet and just kept staring at her intensely. I'm not joking. Hold on, if you didn't have sex with me then what happened? I know I was drunk and all, but I know what I felt. Lucy's face colored in embarrassment as she said the last part. How was he supposed to explain this? Tom asked himself as he cleared his throat. I only said I didn't have sex with you. I didn't say I didn't touch you, he pointed out. Lucy's brows pulled together as she considered his answer thoughtfully. What does that mean? What is the difference? She asked in confusion. I mean, I used my hands and tongue to make love to you. But I couldn't do it, Tom said bluntly, making her face color. Lucy fought off the embarrassment she was feeling as this was an important subject and she couldn't let herself be distracted by her embarrassment. What did he mean by what he was saying? What couldn't he do? I'm not sure I follow what you're saying. This had to be the most awkward conversation he had ever had, Tom thought with a quiet sigh, halfway through He paused to find the right word since he knew she was easily embarrassed by words. Halfway through the process, I found out that it was your first time, so I couldn't go on, Tom said, and Lucy's eyes widened in surprise. You mean you didn't do it? I mean, like you didn't. She stuttered, not knowing how to put it mildly. She was the type to blush furiously when she uttered certain types of words. Yes. I didn't penetrate. I used my mouth and fingers to pleasure you, so if anyone should be thinking about getting tested, it should be me and not you, Tom concluded with a small smile when he noticed how red her face looked. Although Lucy was very embarrassed by the whole discussion, she wanted to know why he had stopped. He had her permission to do to her as he pleased, so why didn't he? He didn't like virgins? Or perhaps he didn't want her blood to stain the sheet because it wasn't his house? Why? She voiced out. Tom paused again. He hasn't expected her to ask why, but then again, this was Lucy. She never behaved as he expected. I think your first sex should be memorable. And I'm kind of glad I didn't do it, else I would have been very disappointed, and my ego would have been bruised knowing that you didn't even remember the events that took place. That said, Tom returned to eating his pizza while Lucy remained there not knowing what to say or do. She felt too embarrassed to even look in his direction, so she looked everywhere else but at him. How do I know you're telling the truth? Lucy asked after a while, still hoping he was lying because she really has no idea how she was going to be able to face him if he was telling her the truth. Simple. The 2 fingers test. But I'm not sure you'd want me doing that to you, or maybe you would. He asked with a grin before adding, just kidding. Maybe you could get someone else to help you do the 2-finger test. Preferably a lady. Or you can do it yourself. I'd like to watch you while you do it though. You know, just to make sure you're getting it right, Tom said with a straight face, but Lucy could see the humor in his eyes. It was quite obvious that he was having fun.